A very good morning to you and welcome to Rapid Dawn right here on Rapid Television. Yes, it is your fresh start to the day. Well, we're living in an interesting time, this time and era. So many things are actually happening in our world, and of course, we're here to keep you updated. My name is Victor. Okay.
And my name is Martha Alu. Good morning to you. Excited to be back here. The month of March is gradually winding down, and some other interesting events, to take place this month. And right after that, we'll close out for the month of March. I hope you had a fantastic weekend because I did. We're here this morning and we're up for the business of the day.
Very true. Talking about the business of the day, let us begin with the rising global tensions. Now, a spokesperson for Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the RGC, has mocked US President Donald Trump using his famous phrase from The Apprentice. And the spokesperson says, "Hey, Trump, you were fired. Thank you for your attention." But let's get to watch the spokesperson for Iran make that statement. Of course, the tension is up both from the United States of America, Israel, and of course, Iran. This particular statement comes after President Trump actually issued a strong warning to Iran, threatening action if key oil routes are not reopened at this point in time. I saw that particular statement from the spokesperson, of Iran, military basically, and one of the things that came to mind is, come on, what is going on here? The two nations are beginning to talk really, really tough.
The crisis in the Middle East is escalating. Iran had warned all of the supposed allies of the United States, and now they're gradually starting to feel the heat also of what is happening in the Middle East. Donald Trump gave Iran the ultimatum of 42 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, it's starting to hit everybody really hard.
Really?
The economic pressures that came up as a result of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. However, the Iran also responded by saying that if that happens, if because America threatened that if it is not opened before 48 hours, they will attack the power plant of the Iranians. And the Iranians also responded that they're waiting for that to happen, because if that happens also, they would all the American information technology and desalination infrastructure will be targeted as well. Remember, lots and lots of their infrastructure across different countries have been destroyed as well.
Right,
Each of the countries are feeling the heat, and the economic pressures still remain as the prices of fuel in Nigeria continues to escalate.
Right.
In the last couple of weeks, we've had not quite like a reasonable increase. What's reasonable at this point?
I mean, fluctuating between 1,300 to 1,400.
Not even the prices of, not even the price of fuel now. Now, the reality on ground is getting a ride to go wherever you want to go is difficult.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a ride that will take you about 5,000 naira takes you 6,500, 7,000 now. And sometimes when you even accept that ride of a 7,000 naira, the drivers get there and they want you to add up almost immediately. I know that there's also the part of greed from the drivers, but the pressure still remains, and the citizens will feel it the most. We are here far, far from the Middle East, but we're still experiencing it. Now think about the people that are at the center of the crisis between Israel, the American government, and Iran.
Very true. Well. I'm still talking about the threat actually by the United States government to Iran, basically. There are growing concerns right now about the attacks on Iran's energy systems. Now, recall that the United States had threatened to actually, target the power plants. But right now, we're seeing that recent report shows that, the threats to target the power plants and energy facilities, currently ongoing, has actually increased the ongoing military pressure in the region, which has also raised concerns or fears of damage to electricity and, of course, infrastructure even now as we speak. We saw a very recent report that, Tehran power plant has been cut down, and right now as we speak, there's been a massive blackout, basically, going on in that particular city. We have a video to that effect, and I think I guess might just have to show us that. But of course, right now, it has been a big time issue right now. The United States have come out to say, well, we are going to have this strike. Iran has come out to talk tough, basically. But of course, we say that all of these are the things that are currently going on right now in, both Iran, of course, as well in the United States, basically. Now, that's actually the video, that shows Tehran in absolute blackout as we speak, and this happened in the early hours of this rather late nights, late hours of yesterday actually, and which shows that the situation right now is very much tense. and of course also developing. We've seen energy infrastructure, being a major target in this particular conflict, and of course, we say that any strike right now could affect power supply and daily life, which is what we've seen on your screen, basically, in as we speak. Now, if we come back home, President Bola Tinubu has said that Nigeria has secured military support from France after talks with President Emmanuel Macron. Now, of course, this follows his recent visit to the United Kingdom. And the president did say that France will assist Nigeria in the fight against insecurity with military equipment and also personnel to come help train the Nigerian soldiers. Now, the question that came to mind when this was said, we have the United States soldiers here in Nigeria, and one of the things that they said as well, whilst they came on board, was that they are not going to be involved in combat, but they are going to be helping to train the Nigerian military, in the fight against insecurity, as we speak. Now, we also see the president saying that he has had a conversation with Emmanuel Macron, the French president, and of course, they've reached an agreement. Military equipment will be brought in. Also, training is also part of the agreement by the French soldiers, to the Nigerian military to help fight against insurgency here in the country, Nigeria.
Why are they not at it already? Because this has been, I think, in January, we saw that some of the troops were deployed into Nigeria, different parts of Nigeria. We saw that there were fighter jets. There were also a jet full of ammunition.
Yeah.
Still, we have insecurity ravaging. Victor, I'm particularly concerned about the fact that we always talk about what we want to do and not actually getting into it. And I feel like the reputation that comes from the coffers of the government as regards what they want to do, what the US is doing, what agreements they've gotten into, is getting pretty frustrating and annoying. The people do not have the patience for all these modalities you're putting in place. What they want is active solutions, proactivity from the government. And that's not too much to ask.
No.
People are still being kidnapped. It's just that we have a reduced report of the number of attacks that have gone on in several communities, even within the FCT. People are getting tired. It's looking as though, we have gotten used to the attack. All you need to do is, when you're getting out of your house in the morning, just pray so you don't become a victim of one of those numerous and senseless attacks across different parts of the country. That's not the way to live.
Not at all.
A country has a structure, and it must abide by the structures that it's put in place. If it gets into a bilateral agreement with other countries, beautiful. But let us see the structures being implemented. From January up until March, we have seen countless attacks. At least 500 people are being kidnapped. At least. In one community alone, we had about 160 or even more being kidnapped. So it's unfortunate and it's quite frustrating as well. Now, talking about bilateral agreements, we also know that the agreement or the visit of the president of Nigeria to the United States,
United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom, rather, I keep saying the United States, to the United Kingdom, there's been lots of agreements that have been entered into by the Nigerian government and the United Kingdom as well. And one of the major agreements was for Nigeria to receive asylum seekers, offenders that are, particularly facing jail term out there, which opens a possible window for Ike Ekweremadu to also be released. Because according to that, I see here that the deal concluded during his president covers the return of failed asylum seekers, visa overstayers, and convicted offenders. And we know that Ike Ekweremadu is serving a 9-year jail term for organ trafficking, in the United States or the United Kingdom as well. So this is potentially creating a pathway for the release of Ike Ekweremadu. And the question has been, when he comes back to Nigeria, will he face his jail term? Or because of the agreement, there's a pardon, some sort of a pardon between the United Kingdom and the Nigerian government have decided to pardon him for his crime. If yes, what does that say about the justice system? Not just in Nigeria at this point, but also that of the United Kingdom. There are many, many parts of this agreement, which of course will unravel as the week goes by during our conversations here on TV.
Very true. With that being said, let's give you a rundown of what to expect even further in the program this morning. We begin with this day in history, where we'll get to dig at deep histories and stories that shaped and continue to shape the world that we live in. And away from this day in history, we'll move straight to news study, where we'll get to unearth discoveries and breakthroughs that are reshaping our understanding of the world. And from there, we'll move straight to Did You Know, where we'll get to review surprising facts, hidden truths, and little known wonders that spark curiosity and expand your perspective. I will move on from there to health tips, where we'll get to give you your daily dose of wellness wisdom from smart habits to expert backed advice. And of course, we'll move on to tech talk as well, where we'll also get to keep you updated on the happenings in the world of technology. From there, we'll move on to the 7:30 hour, where we'll get to review the Nigerian national dailies. And of course, at 8 o'clock, it will be time for the Human Chronicles, where we get to unveil stories behind humanity. And at 8:30, Victor Idema is going to be here to give us sporting updates. And of course, also one of the results that broke the heart of many Arsenal fans yesterday, as we lost our game to Manchester City yesterday. It was a very, very heartbreaking game yesterday. So, the display wasn't something that the Arsenal fans or even the Arsenal players, are all happy about. But of course, Victor Jema is going to be here to give us a further update on that and keep us updated on the happenings in the world of sports. And of course, at 9 o'clock, we're back for the big conversation. This is with us. In just in a moment, we'll be back to continue with the program.
Time is power. Our lives are powered by the sun. As the sun rises, so do we. As we trust it to rise and set without any worries interrupting your morning. With our hybrid all-in-one inverter, powering our prosperity and happiness. But also nurture what is dear to us, powering trust and support, empowering us to do things that really matters. Star Times Solar, power your life.
This is Rapid Broadcasting Network, RBN. We connect people, power stories, and amplify voices. On Rapid TV, we're rooted in culture and your window to the stories that matter. From news to lifestyle, we inform, entertain, and uplift. Join Rapid TV on Star Times Channel 176, Nightcom Sat. On Rapid FM, we speak your language, from the soulful airwaves of Umuahia to the vibrant culture of Port Harcourt and beyond. More than broadcasters, we're creators, amplifying that voice within with powerful content across TV, radio, and digital. Join us at rbnradiotv.com and all our social media handles. One network, one voice. Rapid Broadcasting Network, RBN, the sound of your city. Rooted in truth, driven by impact.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. We're moving straight now to Today in History. And Today in History is World Meteorological Day. This happens every March 23rd. Every year on this particular day, the world celebrates the World Meteorological Day. And this day marks the creation of the World Meteorological Organization in 1950. The organization was set up to help countries work together on weather, climate, and water information. And this, of course, helps us understand things like rainfall, heat, storms, and climate change. And this matters because weather affects our daily lives, what we wear, how we travel, and even our safety. And so good weather information helps us to warn people about floods and storms, support farming and food production, also helps to protect lives and property, especially within this particular time here in Nigeria, where the heat has been very, very enormous and massive. With weather reports, we all get to know what to do at every point in time. And so today in history is World Meteorological Day.
And moving on to new study, today we're talking about something that I've always wondered about. Curiosity, I would say, seen in sci-fi movies as well. Scientists have been able to bring mouse brains back to life after a cryosleep deep freeze, and scientists successfully restored the activities in a frozen mouse brain tissue using vitrification, which is a process of doing that. And vitrification is a method that prevents ice damage by turning tissue into a glass-like state. It's giving frozen, but after thawing, the brain cells remain intact and responsive, with signals linked to learning and memory still functioning after the brain was restored. Now, the discovery could improve organ preservation and brain injury treatment, but of course the human application and full CSIRO sleep remains far from reality. And this is very important, of course, for organ preservations, like I stated earlier, because for people who, for organ transplants, right, there's a lot that goes on when an organ is harvested to be transplanted into another body. Now, for some other organs, it takes about 4 to 6 hours before it becomes unfit to be transplanted into a body. For some, it is 4 to 6 hours. I know for the heart it's 4 to 6. For the lungs, it's also 4 to 6 hours until it becomes unfit to be transplanted into another body. However, this development means that it can't be frozen until it wants to be in use. Because think about a donor giving a kidney or giving something, and because of preservation, it's not able, I mean, you cannot use it because it's not properly preserved, and because it has a period which it becomes unfit to be transplanted. So look at it as a step forward for medicine and preserving organs just before they are transplanted. So this is what scientists have discovered, and I think it's such a fantastic improvement.
Well, of course, moving on to Did You Know? I saw that a tech boss once used ChatGPT to help create a cancer vaccine for his dog, and this happened actually this year. And so according to the report, it says in 2026, Australian tech entrepreneur Paul Cunningham worked with a scientist after his dog was diagnosed with serious cancer, and he used AI tools to study the dog's DNA, identify the cancer problem, help design a personalized mRNA vaccine. And so the treatment didn't fully cure the cancer, but it actually shrunk the tumors, improved the dog's health, helped the dog live even longer. And so it's important now to see that some of the important facts here is that ChatGPT did not create the vaccine alone, but we scientists, and labs did the medical work. AI only assisted in the process. And so just to add to that, that AI is becoming a powerful tool in medicine, but human experts are still in charge. So just in case someone heard this, Did You Know today, and thought, okay, maybe now I can be a scientist or a doctor. No, you might not be able to do that, because he had to work with doctors, scientists, and of course, lab scientists to be able to ensure that that vaccine was created. However, AI just aided in some knowledge. But of course, the scientists were the ones who developed it and ensured that the vaccine was not developed properly in the laboratory. And that's what I have for you today.
Yes, it's also important to know that you can conceptualize ideas using ChatGPT. That didn't do the whole work, but it helped in creating the idea in the first place. It's just basically making use of these tools that are made accessible to you. Trying to start up a business, there's a chatbot you can ask. Trying to start up something and you're confused about the pathways you should follow. I think that we should embrace it. A lot of people are trying to embrace it, but if more people do, I think our jobs will be easier, literally. But moving on to health tips, today we're talking about managing freshness in hot weather. The season is upon us. The hot weather is right upon us, and I cannot begin to tell you the environmental hazards I have experienced throughout this heat period. But it's important that we know that hygiene has to be a habit, and it's something that we have to take on in our everyday life. And because the weather is hot, we need to understand what freshness in hot weather should be like. Now, why body freshness matters during this weather. First off, I am adding that it's your corporate social responsibility to make sure that everybody around you survives.
Yes.
Then, maintaining body freshness is an important part of personal hygiene. Now, in hot weather, increased sweating creates a moist environment where bacteria can thrive, which can lead to body odor and discomfort if not properly managed. It's not a time to bathe once a day. Now, areas to pay attention to during this hot weather. Sweat tends to build up more in areas like your armpits, your feet, your groin, and under the breast. Now, these areas require extra care to stay clean and fresh throughout the day. So when you're showering, these are areas that you need to pay proper attention to, especially because, how do we call it? Especially because air does not get through these areas easily. And that's why it's important for you to wear breathable fabrics during the hot weather. Now, you need to maintain regular hygiene during this period. Bathe at least at least twice a day. Bathe at least twice a day, especially during the hot weather. Focus on cleaning sweat-prone areas thoroughly and dry your body properly after bathing. Some people take it a notch higher by using cotton wool and spirits, or cotton wool and toners, to just clean the areas that are prone to sweat regularly, just so that you also stay healthy. Remember, bacteria form in the moist areas, which means that your life can, or your health can also be at risk. Much more than caring for your environment, there's also caring about yourself and your health. Also, wear clean and breathable clothing. Choose the light fabrics like cotton and allow air circulation. Avoid wearing tight or unwashed clothes, as they can trap sweat and encourage body odor. It's not the time to wear your clothes twice or 3 times. It's important for you to become aware of what it smells like and throw it in the washing machine. All right. Now, stay dry and fresh throughout the day. Change out of sweaty clothes quickly. Use deodorant and antiperspirant, and consider carrying wipes or small towel to stay fresh when you are outdoors. Deodorant and antiperspirant, if you cannot afford that, there are other natural remedies that you can use. I talked about cotton wool and spirit, cotton wool and toners. It's important that you add this to your routine during this heat season. Also, you need to watch your diet and hydration. You need to drink plenty of water to help regulate your body temperature. Also, be mindful that certain foods and poor hydration can contribute to a stronger body odor. It's important for you. We have given you the basics. It's important to go check what foods you need to avoid during this period, and that's which you need to take up in your diet. This is what we have for you today on health tips. Take it as serious as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm tempted to share an experience, but I think I'll just let her pass. But let's move on to Tech Talk this morning, and of course bring you some of the tech trends that are making waves, of course also information in the world of technology. I will say that the 2026 World Happiness Report states that using social media too much can make people, especially those under 25, feel less happy. Now, the headline you see on your screen says social media linked to declining life satisfaction among youth, according to a report. Again, this report was done by the World Happiness Report, which says that using social media too much can make people, especially those under 25, feel less happy. This report is released every year during the International Day of Happiness, and it measures how happy people feel in different countries. And what they found is that many young people feel less satisfied with their lives. And this is more common in countries like the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Happiness among young people in these places has dropped over the last 10 years. Notice how Nigeria is not, in the top of this particular list, because I think that Nigerians use social media a lot, and one of the things that they find very common in the Nigerian social media space is the comedy skits. And so many times when Nigerians actually pick up their phone for social media scrolling, you get to hear lots of laughter coming out from there. But beyond that, they also get into quite a lot using their social media, right? And social media creates pressure to always be online, according to the reason this report or the researchers found that as to why people are not being so satisfied is because, according to them, social media creates pressure to always be online, and people compare themselves to others even when it makes them feel bad. They still keep using it. Now, in fact, many young people say that they wish social media did not exist at all, but they use it. They use it because everyone else is using it. And of course, it's also important for us to know that social media can connect us, but too much of it can affect our happiness. And so it's important for you to know that balancing it is key to using it as well. So yes, as much as possible, use social media to the best of your ability, and as much as possible, do not judge your growth with another person's growth based on what you see on social media. The truth is, many things we see on social media are not real. They are not true. People are just creating a form of illusion, what they want you to see as much as possible. So yeah, be happy, even in your own right. Away from that particular story, we also see that there's been a growing concern in the tech world about how online criminals operate on platforms like Telegram. Even when these illegal groups are shut down, they don't go, they don't stay gone for long. And of course, what you can see on your screen is that Telegram users are facing rising cyber threats despite 43.5 million takedowns, according to reports. Now, what most of these groups do is that they create backup channels on Telegram. Once one of those channels is removed, they go back, to another channel, and almost immediately they build their networks or rebuild their networks and their communities. According to experts from Checkpoint Software, rather, they say that these criminals are becoming more advanced, and they now use smarter methods to avoid being caught. They change how they operate regularly, and they stay ahead of security efforts. And what this means is that even though Telegram is removing many harmful groups, the overall problem is still growing. And so the bottom line is that cybercrime is not slowing down. It is becoming more organized and harder to stop. And I mean, the government, not just in Nigeria, but of course the global world leaders has got to pay even more attention and do a lot more to ensure that cybercrime is reduced drastically, as these guys are always almost one step ahead. They're getting smarter by the day, to ensure that they carry out their cybercrime on various platforms. And Telegram has been one that's been seen to be very vulnerable, as multiple channels has been created by some of these criminals online. And just like we stated earlier on, once a group is being caught and brought down, the criminals move to another channel that they've created, begin to regroup, build their communities again, and continue with their criminal activities. And once that is being shut down, they move on to another channel, which makes it a lot more difficult for law enforcement agencies, to actually crack down on the activities that they do online. So let's all be careful and well guarded, even as we use our technological tools, globally. With that being said, this is all we're going to be taking on this segment of the program. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll move straight to the review of the Nigerian National Day List. Just stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Rapid Done right here on Rapid Television. And right now it's time for the review of the Nigerian National Day List. I'm just starting off with the Punch newspaper. On the Punch newspaper, recapitalization, 1 week to deadline, banks in last-minute rush. Airlines under pressure after jet fuel price surges 100%. And terrorism. Tinubu brokers French military assistance deal. Tinubu brokers French military assistance deal. And talk about 2027 strategy. Makinde meets Kwankwaso as PDP reconciliation falters. Makinde meets Kwankwaso as PDP reconciliation falters. There's some details to that story. It says ahead of the 2027 general elections, the PDP governors Shey Makinde of course Oyo State and Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State met with the national leader of the Nigerian Democratic Congress, Senator Siriake Dixon, and former Kano State Governor and 2023 NNPP's presidential aspirant Rabiu Kwankwaso as reconciliation efforts between the governors and minister of the Federal Capital Territory Nyesom Wike's block stored. Now, Makinde and the chairman, PDP Governors Forum, Mohammed, held a closed-door meeting with the NMPP presidential candidate, and of course, Senator Siriake Dixon. Of course, the details of that meeting will be probably made known to the public as they continue. But it just seems like the issue in the PDP isn't getting to an end anytime soon. We'll talk about state police. Governors move to submit proposal to National Assembly. Governors move to submit proposal to National Assembly. NLC rejects fresh 6 trillion naira bailout for Gencos. And Mohbad's father insists on DNA tests before burial. Elumelu Foundation backs 3,200 African entrepreneurs. But these are the headlines you're going to find on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, moving on to the Daily Independent newspaper. We have some interesting headlines over there. And the first says the oil price surge may reverse fragile gains in price stability. It says oil price surge may reverse fragile gains in price stability. Moving on to other headlines. Failure to zone ADC ticket will will hand Tinubu re-election. Failure to zone ADC ticket to the south will hand Tinubu re-election. The next ADC describes Nigerian 746 million euros pact with the UK as a Mugu deal. This has been one of the major things on the news, the 746 million euros financing deal with the United Kingdom to modernize the Apapa and Tinkan Island ports in Lagos. And the ADC is calling it a Mugu deal. That sounds like a fancy name for whatever it is they are trying to describe. But the party noted that the agreement disproportionately favored the United Kingdom and its economy while leaving Nigeria with a massive debt. And he added that Tinubu traveled to London to sign an agreement that resembles a colonial era treaty. And this is one of the major concerns that sprung up when, the news of the deal that it was to be signed between the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We hope we are not looking at recolonization, because this is that deal. Of course, you know that this is a debt that we're going to pay to the United Kingdom. And the report says that Nigeria has to do a down payment of 15%, which is, of course, is in billions of naira. Right. And according to them, this favors the United Kingdom much more than it favors the Nigerian government as well. Now, speaking about other headlines on the story, it says that the ADC statement by its National Publicity Secretary said, while the APC government has tried to pass off the deal as President Tinubu's major achievement, it is in fact an achievement of the UK government, which through this deal has managed to save its steel industry, protect thousands of UK jobs, and get Nigeria to pay for it. You might want to look extensively into the deal that was signed by the Nigerian government and the UK government as well. Moving on, governors push back legislative overhaul to back state policing initiative, and Tinubu asked Macron for equipment to tackle insecurity. Moving on, about 2027, APC in mortal fear of PDP, Makinde's rising profile. APC in mortal fear of PDP, Makinde's rising profile. PDP says that. Now, Atiku slams the federal government over renewed OPL 245 legal tussle. Now, the OPL 245 oil license 245 it's a highly controversial, resource-rich deep water oil block in Nigeria's Niger Delta, valued holding roughly 9 billion barrels of crude. Now, often synonymous with the Malibu scandal, and it involves allegations of massive corruption, money laundering, and international legal battles surrounding its 2011 sale by Malibu Oil and Gas at ENI and Shell for about $1.3 billion. Sometime last month, we heard that the matter was struck out of court, was being kicked out of court, and they had arrived at a conclusion. Now, revisiting that yet again is what Atiku calls slamming the federal government for over a renewed tussle, because we heard the matter had been closed, and revisiting it again just gives a back and forth, particularly about that issue. Now, moving on to further headlines, NLC seeks merger of petroleum power ministries to curb blackout and warns the federal government against 6 trillion naira bailout for Gencos and Discos. Also, Nigeria gains $2.6 billion mining FDIs as Alake advocates regional energy hubs. And these are the headlines you would find on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper.
Moving on to the Nigerian Tribune. Experts divided over benefits of 746 million pounds UK export finance deal for Nigeria. Unstable FX regime threatens Apapa Tinkan port upgrade gains. And the Nigerian Labour Congress rejects federal government's planned 6 trillion naira power generation bailout, calls for power, petroleum ministries merger. Kwankwaso, Makinde, Dixon meet in Kano as Bala Mohammed Makinde meet with Dixon in Bauchi. Obi meets Kwankwaso in Kano. Disregard misleading narratives on PDP leadership, Wike-backed group tells members. Disregard misleading narratives on PDP leadership, Wike-backed group tells members. Talk about insecurity. My foreign trips are paying off. France, UK committed to supporting Nigeria. Tinubu making that statement, and of course you can see detail of that statement on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. IGP directs reduction of police tactical teams, says tactical teams not disbanded. Gunmen abduct 8 worshippers during church service in Kwara. Another sad story there, and details of it you can find on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune. Motorist passengers lament as petrol pump price hits 1,380 naira per litre. If you look at the health column, tooth loss doesn't just make eating harder, it makes thinking more challenging, according to researchers. Well, these are the headlines you're going to find on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, I'm moving on to the Guardian newspaper. The major story says that eyes on insurance sector as banks survive recapitalization and liquidation. That's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And for the headline says that ADC, Imo, Lagos, Zamfara, Rivers pledge loyalty to Mark's leadership. ADC says Imo, Lagos, Rivers, and Zamfara pledge loyalty to Mark's leadership. Now, Sanusi hails Yusuf's 30% education budget for Kano State, and this is commendable. The Nigerian budget completely does not even capture 20% for education, but a state went ahead to have about 30% allocated for education, which is very commendable. And I think that other states should follow suit by allocating more to education. Remember what happened recently in Aguda North, in River State, where the educational sector was made public, or what happens in the sector, particularly in the local government. That particular local government was reviewed by, I think it was a core member, or a teacher rather, went to the school complaining about the dilapidated state of the school. Now, thankfully, the good or well-meaning Nigerians like Burna Boy have taken it upon themselves to rehabilitate that school, but the local governments can do more. Exactly. Funds are being allocated, and we'll move on to the next headline, which budget has said that out of 36 states, only 10 states, local government areas have accessible budgets. So how do you track the funds that are being allocated to these local governments? Now, that's the headline on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Budget says only 10 states have publicly accessible LGA budget. Now, it is deeper than you look at it in the surface. It's not just, because we might say it's just a document that is not being released, but the local governments are the closest tier of government to the people. So if their budgets are not public, citizens don't know how much is allocated to them. The citizens do not know what projects are planned by the local government chairman. And this creates a system where governance becomes like invisible at the level that matters the most. So this, of course, the government should look into. Well, I hope, because most times what we see is this is what is happening, this is what is obtainable, not necessarily what will be done to address what exactly is happening. Yesterday, I'm sure you must have come across as well, a lot of people on their social media status posting certain drugs and saying, oh, this is banned. NAFDAC has banned it and say nobody should use. How about we control and we regulate the influx of these products? How about we regulate the production of this product rather than countering the authenticity of the product after it has saturated the market? That's proactivity. If we must solve the problem, we must look at taking it from the root. And this is what it's not too much to ask, really. Moving on to other headlines. Tinubu, Ezekwesili, NBA protests Ozoro sexual assault in Delta State. Let's leave that because it's part of the major conversation that we would have this morning. Integrate energy sector and stop Genco's 6 trillion naira bailout, NLC tells the federal government. Bandits storm church and kidnap 8 worshippers in Kwara State. 2027 is the headline. It says opposition leaders explore new alliance as internal crises linger. And eyes on the finance of France to back Nigeria with military equipment after Tinubu Macron talks. I hear about 200 drones or fighter drones would be sent into Nigeria and what have you. Some other things that were being signed by the Tinubu administration and Macron-led administration. Now, $1.5 billion deal, ADC Oye faults Tinubu's UK visit, squandered opportunity, he calls it. Since PPE decries high cost of living, business pressures, and 10 trillion naira lost to blackout. These are the headlines you would find on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
Moving on to the Daily Sun newspaper. Over 150 bandits drown in Sokoto boat mishap as gunmen abduct 8 in Kwara Church. Recapitalization deadline, 3 banks await verification, and CBN considers special lifeline for 2. And 30 banks cleared, asks experts urge strong post-consolidation competition. Ministers' aides panic as Tinubu remains neutral. Aspirants barred from lobbying president. This, of course, is ahead of the elections in 2027. NLC rejects 6 trillion naira bailout demands. I'll take that again. NLC rejects 6 trillion naira bailout, demands energy sector reforms as they call for merger of power petroleum ministries to fix energy crisis in Nigeria. $16 million TEF grant, Agric, Fashion, ICT lead 2026 entrepreneur cohorts. An airfare hike imminent as Middle East tensions push aviation fuel to 2,557 naira to a liter. And domestic airlines battle losses amid the plunging traffic. Persistent fuel price surge leaves households, businesses gasping, and marketers are strained. Citizens want federal government's intervention. Yes, we all need the intervention of the federal government, and we need it like yesterday. But of course, these are the headlines you can find on the front page of the Daily Sun.
And moving on to the New Telegraph. We won't allow insecurity overshadow our efforts at helping the vulnerable, says the UK-France collaborating on equipment support, urges governors to provide incentives to workers to cushion effect of inflation caused by the Middle East war. Bandits invade Kwara Church and abduct 8 worshippers. Ghana commends the federal government DSS over 44 nationals rescue. You find that on page 228 of the New Telegraph. Now, intrigues as Atiku, Obi, and Mechi Nwajuba gear up for ADC presidential primary, and troops arrest man with 36 suspected explosive in Lagos State. About the Middle East crisis, Nigeria firms threatened as shipping crisis traps raw materials. Enough of blackout. NLC demands urgent overhaul, and single energy ministry wants 6 trillion naira bailout scrapped. Cannabis compounds may reverse fatty liver disease. This is what study says. Cannabis compounds may reverse fatty liver disease. That's on page 30 of the New Telegraph. Also, alleged missing 210 trillion naira. Serap urges the Senate to publish the names of implicated officials. And about 2027, PDP strong will defeat APC in fair context, says the CP of PDP. Voter apathy as Nigeria's dilemma in 2027 polls. And Obi, Makinde, Dixon meet Kwankwaso in Kano. Sustained volatility pushes pump price to 1,350 naira per litre in Lagos State. Even in Abuja, it's about that same amount as well. And financial institution imputes to VAT up 40.4% to 314.1 billion naira. Again, this is the headline you would find, or are the headlines you would find on the front page of the New Telegraph.
And moving on to the Vanguard newspaper. Let's begin with the APC convention as aspirants cry foul, alleged hoarding of nomination forms. Aspirants cry foul, alleged hoarding of nomination forms. Let's talk about the state police. A governor split as insecurity worsens nationwide. Most states a back move and others warn of abuse, repression. And North divided, Kaduna, Plateau, Kano, Taraba set pace. Tinubu can't create it by fiat. Tinubu can't create it by fiat, Afenifere says, and lawmakers, governors face crucial tests. We will address Nigerians' concerns. This is according to the Senate, and of course, all of these riders are according to the headline, talking about the state police, which governor split as insecurity worsens nationwide. U.S.-Iran encounter threats over Strait of Hormuz. U.S.-Iran encounter threats over Strait of Hormuz. NLC wants urgent overhaul of power sector as the sixth single energy ministry insists on no bailout for Genco discos as power crisis deepens. And there's been some blackout in some parts of the country, Nigeria, even in the FCT, in some parts, are experiencing blackout, or what they call the rationing of power, within this period. UK expands detention capacity to speed up deportations. Ozoro Festival assault remittable executively. NAPTIP others demand justice. But these are the headlines you're going to find on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper.
They are demanding. Are they not supposed to enforce NAPTIP?
NAPTIP, that's their job.
It's their job. When you are demanding justice from who? Exactly. It's your office. It's your responsibility to go there to that community. I heard that the king claims not to know that anything of such has existed. How then did the boys in their numbers gather to carry out a festival that is the king is oblivious of? Too many questions. But if you need answers, go to the communities. That's your responsibility. Moving on to this day newspaper. Makinde says any PDP member with Wike is enemy to democracy. Declares INEC judiciary APC government behind FCT minister's camp. Akpoti Uduahan laments loss of 34 PDP senators and urges defectors to return to the party. Bala Mohammed insists on no issue is irreconcilable, and Wike's faction explains why reconciliation is unlikely. And Immigrants Connection Committee, or how is that being said? Now, Tinubu, Nigeria in talks with UK and France for supporting fight against insecurity, says that the government intensifying efforts to target or to tackle scourge and wants Middle East crisis may worsen inflation, reduce purchasing power, assures Nigerians his government will continue to help the vulnerable. Now, Ozoro sexual assault, I watched the horrific viral footage, says the First Lady. And inflation targeting regime will improve transparency, accountability, credibility of monetary policy, says the CBN, bags Central Bank of the Year award in global recognition of reforms efforts. And U.S. pushes hardline African policy. Tinubu's diplomacy faces questions. These are the headlines on the front page of this day newspaper.
And let's move on to the Nation newspaper. Makinde, Bala Mohammed differ on way forward for PDP. And Nigeria records $26 billion mining FDI. Labour demands quick energy sector reform. Elumelu urges sustained support for SMEs. Ghana lauds federal government DSS for rescuing 44 nationals. And President, Governor step up war against terrorists. And Tinubu seeks French equipment, intelligence backing. Nigerian, the NGF rather, making that statement. NGF, State Police Bill ready soon. Rather, the NGF says State Police Bill ready soon. 10 discos get 0 megawatts allocation. Wow. 10 discos got 0 megawatts allocation, and 34 banks scale recapitalization hurdle and 8 days to CBN deadline. Death toll of gas explosion victims now 60 as 8 abducted in Kwara Church. These are the headlines you're going to find on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, and then to the Daily Trust, Tinubu's ally to handle 1.4 trillion naira Lagos Port project. And Nigerians' woes deepening as petrol hits 1,400 naira per litre. Kwankwaso host Obi and Makinde Dixon in Kano State, and worshippers abducted during church service in Kwara. Not much on here on the front page of the Daily Trust. This concludes it for this morning.
A lot of course finally on the Business Day newspaper. Rising energy costs force households, businesses into survival mode. We're reading from the Business Day. Rising energy costs force households, businesses into survival mode. And Nigeria sees second highest surge in petrol price globally since Iran war. Heatwave, power outages, was in pain. Banks are cautious over dollar sales to BDCs despite directives. And Nigeria dominates global exchange with 30% growth in first quarter. Europe taps Dangote refinery amid deepening jet fuel crisis. Well, these are the headlines you're going to find on the front page of the Business Day newspaper. And this concludes the review of the Nigerian National Daily this morning. We'll go out on a break and we'll come back. It will be time for the Human Chronicles, where we get to unveil the story behind humanity. Do stay with us. Sadly, many girls that were kidnapped by Boko Haram 10 years ago in Chibok have not been reunited with their families. They've not been rescued by the military agencies of our country, Nigeria. And almost every administration that comes on board has a promise to make to Nigerians and, of course, the families of these children. But nothing drastic really has been done. The story of Amina is one out of the many that has been kidnapped. Luckily and thankfully, she was able to escape, and she escaped with her daughter, which of course implies that many of the girls that were kidnapped have not been turned to baby-making factories. And this is a very sad situation that we'll find ourselves in this part of the world. 10 years after, these girls are still in the captivity of their abductors. The question again is, what is the government doing to ensure that those that are still there are being released?
Exactly. The story is not why are the girls still there, it's why is the story still unfinished? After 10 years, the story is still unfinished. 276 girls were kidnapped from their homes, and not all of them have been released. About the numbers vary. About 80 to 90 of them are still missing. Leah Sheribu is one of them, one of the girls who refused to denounce her faith. Just a little girl of about 8 years old, and she made a lot of people spoke about Leah at the time when her story was made public. Now, over the years, some were rescued by the military, some were rescued through negotiations, with these people. Others escaped on their own, but the recent reports, like I said, says about 80 to 90 girls are still missing. Now, about 82 were unaccounted for as of 2024, and according to a UN-related update in 2025-2026, it says that 90 of them may still be in captivity as we speak. So out of 276 girls, if we have 180 plus has been released, 80 to 90 still missing. The number slightly vary depending on rescue missions or confirmations or reports, as the case may be. But 10 years later, girls are being occasionally found. They are being occasionally rescued. So it's not like they are in a particular place where all of them can be found. It's scattered. They are scattered now. So that makes the mission of rescue even a lot more difficult for the government as well. Some were rescued most recently in 2024. I think that's one of the most recent rescues that we had seen by the government. But the Nigerian government still says that the girls have not been forgotten. International bodies still continue to call on the Nigerian government and the necessary organizations to look into that. Now, the issue is many families have not still found closure. And even the girls that are being rescued, reintegrating them into the society has been quite a difficult task because of trauma, because of the experiences they've had to go through. Some of them were forced into child marriage. Some of them had children there. Some of them were even killed. But the painful part is, as of today, we don't have the accurate data and narration of what happened to each of them. It is so painful to see a child being separated from their parents and not be accounted for. If there are bodies to bury, it is even bearable. It is painful, but it is still bearable. You know that you held your loved ones and you buried them. And here in Nigeria, in fact, in different parts of the world, people go to the gravesite of their loved ones to visit once in a while. Just helps them to create closure. But in an instance or in a case where these people still they can't find their children, it's an unfortunate situation. And sometimes we can also be unkind people. Imagine victimizing a child that was born out of a situation like this. Empathy doesn't take anything. The child has to we moved out of that community because she was being referred to as a child of a Boko Haram Doesn't make any sense.
Not
But
at all.
I mean, over a decade later, we're still talking about it. The Nigerian government has to do something. They cannot be forgotten. These are vulnerable children. These are vulnerable girls. And when we talk about the conversation of girls being vulnerable to attacks like this, it's not because, you know, men are not also being attacked or men are not also being kidnapped. But look at the extent of damage that has been done. Forced into child marriage. Some of them were raped. Some of them now have children. Like the likes of Amina in the story, which we have been able to see the account today. A child having a child and not even knowing how to take care of that child, regardless of the fact that the child remains her priority. But this is the story, this is the sad reality of the Chibok girls, and it's important that the government looks into it. We'll still continue to call because, like I said, they are humans and they deserve to be found. They deserve justice.
It's here.
Please be.
You know, in a community, you have people who are related to one another. Like in my local community where I base now, I have relatives, cousins, friends whom I know they are sisters. I know the areas they are connected to me.
Okay.
So when there are cultural activities or practices ongoing, if it will affect them negatively, there is no way I am going to do anything to affect them. So they said when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse definitely takes place. So like I told you, and I've been saying it, this traditional festival has been ongoing for years. And you know, these days, the society is kind of, how do I even explain it? A lot of things are happening in our society these days, especially with our youth, who are, majority of them are not coming up to do things that are not known before now.
Mr. Jaffet, let's
talk of issue of drugs.
Mr. Jaffet,
we're deviating from the conversation.
Before we deviate from the conversation, let's stay on track. Now, you made a quote, which of course is a very popular quote. He said, if the purpose of a thing is not known, then abuse is inevitable. What was the purpose of the fertility festival? What was the purpose of it?
The purpose of it is to appeal the gods of fertility for couples who are married, who are expecting the fruit of the womb.
All right. So the purpose is known, right?
Okay.
That's to state on that particular
Yes.
fact. Who are those that are supposed to be custodians of this particular culture? Is it citizens or outsiders?
The citizens.
So it means that, again, that the citizens of the community knows the purpose of this particular festival, and they are the ones that are supposed to ensure that this festival goes on according to how it is being known over time. Because you said prior, right, that the sexual abuse was not supposed to be part of the cultural festivity. It wasn't supposed to be part of the penalty, according to you, because of course there are certain penalties.
Why is there even a penalty?
for
That's
that.
even the start of my conversation. Why is there a penalty? Why are women not allowed to go out of their homes in 2026? Why do you have such a why is such a barbaric culture being practiced? If there's already a breach in the fundamental human rights of the women within the community in Ozoro. First of all, why are they not allowed to go out? If we didn't have that lacuna, we would not have perverts or whatever kind of men hijack the festival. The festival in itself, in the first place, or how you enforce the observation of that festival is wrong. Nobody should be told when to go and when not to go. People have their free will, and every human being, man or woman, should be allowed to exercise their free will. You said punishment, and I was waiting for you to highlight it, what the punishments were, and you said pour sand on them as though that was light a punishment to a woman, you know, who has her free will. She's allowed to make the decision on what to cook. She knows what to do for your children. She knows how to take care of the home front, but she should not be allowed to decide on a particular day when she should go out and when she should not go out as an individual. So if we are still practicing that in 2026, there's a problem with the Ozoro community, and the government of Nigeria needs to visit the Ozoro community to straighten the laws that they practice that is not in tandem with the constitution as regards the protection of the fundamental human rights of women. And that's just literally everything I have to say.
And also to add that, so you can give us a response now to this as well. First off, we also saw that the king of your community, first of all, denied that these were allegations, that this never actually happened. Let's get you, first of all, make a statement on that.
Okay, the king did not outrightly deny that he is not aware. Like I said earlier on, the festival is not about what happened on March 19th. Like I said, what happened March 19th was strange to every one of us. Was strange in the sense that this practice have been ongoing over the years. The Eluedo Festival practice have been ongoing over the years. And hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
can hear
go
you.
on.
Go ahead.
Okay. And never has it been heard that women were assaulted in that form that we saw on March 19th. And we are saying that the festival was hijacked by youths who were not abreast with what the festival was truly all about.
So it's
And
again, Mr. Jaffe, sorry we're cutting you, because we need to get some clarity. Because if you keep saying that this particular festival was hijacked by youth who were not abreast by what the festivity was all about, I mean, there are also youth from your community who understood what the festivity was all about. Outsiders cannot come out and hijack a festival without members of the community and society, first of all, showing a leeway to saying this is the way things are done. But these are also some of the allegations that
okay,
we're seeing.
if you watch some of the videos that were flying around social media, there was one incident of one bike man who was carrying a lady. While they were riding on the road, some youths accosted them. In the process of trying to assault this woman, the bike man started protecting this woman. That bike man is from Ozoro community. If he is part of those who are assaulting or who are going against what the festival is all about, he would have joined them. Some youth of Ozoro community, they were all out to protect women who were abused by this other set of youths who were going about abusing women. So if we try to generalize it to say, oh, the youth of Ozoro community or the Ozoro community, this is what they are known for, then we are not being fair. Because we can see it, the evidence are there.
What evidence?
That show that some women were being protected in the process of them being abused by some youths who went all out to tarnish the image of Delta State and the Ozoro community. It is clear that what happened that day is art that should be condemned in a sane society, whether cultural practice, whether festival practice. It shouldn't be seen or heard in a sane society. And that is why every sane individual is coming out to condemn the art, including me myself. But what I'm trying to say is that when something is ongoing and then it turns out to be something else, I think there should be a review. The government and relevant stakeholders must not come up to say, okay, how do we put modalities in place to checkmate such art from occurring again? Because what happened March 19 will not stop the festival from taking place next year.
Okay, so then,
Mr. Jaffet,
Mr. Jaffet, we need to make sure that we understand each other on this conversation, because when you are saying that whatever had happened on the 19th of March will not stop the festival, I'm sorry, I might have to say that you also play a part in whatever sort of abuse happens within the Ozoro community, and I'll tell you why. I have already pointed out to you that the practice in itself is barbaric, because nobody should be told when to go out and when not to go out, especially when it's an adult. Especially when it's an adult we are talking about here. So when you say that the festival will continue, I quite do not agree with you, and I don't understand the point where you're coming from when you say it doesn't stop the culture. A culture that clearly demeans women, a culture that clearly tramples on the fundamental human rights of the citizens of Nigeria, which is against the constitution. So I might be confused as to what you mean by the festival will still go on. Are you with me, Mr. Japheth?
Mr. Japheth.
Well, we are looking at this. Yes, you are speaking, and then you're looking at this festival from one side. Now, the people of Ozoro community, the women who have benefited from this festival in the other side will not agree with you.
How did they benefit?
If you go into the Ozoro community, okay, like I said, the festival is all about fertility. Women who are married and are seeking for fruit of the womb,
okay,
majority of them, they see this festival as an avenue for them to have breakthrough in having children that they aspire for. It's just like the Christians who go to church in seeking or praying for fruit of the womb. This is how these people who practice this tradition still go about. When it is the time for the festival, they believe, they expect that things are going to happen for them to give birth to children and others. So it has been working for them over the years. It's just that what happened March 19th was not part of what has been happening over the years.
All right.
And that is why we are all coming out to condemn the act.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Japheth Omene, for your time on the program with us this morning. We do appreciate you. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here with us.
You're welcome.
All right. Of course, we're still talking about the situation that happened in the Ozoro community over the weekend, where women, young girls, were assaulted. Some of them were dragged, sexually assaulted because they only came out. According to the report, says that the community was having a fertility festival, which, according to them, does not allow women to come out. And there we have women being assaulted there. We've seen the state government carry out certain probe. The federal government has also ordered that there has to be that the full weight of the law has got to be melted on the perpetrators of this particular act. But of course, just like we've been having this conversation, why should this be going on in 2026 in a civilized world? Why should women be be restricted on movement? Why should they be harassed at this point in time? But of course, these are some of the worries and concerns that we've had so far on the program this morning.
And the truth is, much more than just the Ozoro community, whatever happened on the 19th of March in that community is a reflection of such a systemic failure. Because let's say that the festival was hijacked by people who do not know about the festival. Look at the number of men that gathered to observe the festival. So I find it hard to believe that that's not something that had existed before now. We have footages, we have clips of men that gathered, we have clips of men jubilating literally to the fact that, oh, it's the time of the festival, then they will get to assault women and all of that. You see, so it's hard to believe that all of these men unconsciously came out of their house, not knowing exactly what the festival is about, yet they came out to celebrate it. That's one. Secondly, if the young people in our society, the young men in our society, all came out to hijack the festival and turn it to a rape festival, then we are in trouble as a nation. Because if this number of men exists in this country and in this society, then a lot of women, the lives of a lot of women are at stake. The freedom of these women are at stake. The protection of these women against sexual assault is at stake. Because look at the number of people who came out to assault women. This is such a personal issue because if you go into literally several communities in Nigeria, you experience abuse like this. Look at the Ozoro festival. We talked about the rape culture. And first of all, even though the festival was hijacked, the fundamentals of your culture is also faulty. People should be allowed to move whenever they want to move. I understand that previously these are strict cultures that we are adhered to. But as we evolve, nobody's rights should be trampled upon. The community know better.
Yeah.
The community cannot say that they do not know better than forcing people to stay at home. Okay, why are we against the sit at home that happened in the East? When we support a Sikh festival that limits women and forces women to stay at home, even though they don't want to stay at home. Why are we against the sit at home in the Middle East? See, when we are talking about a particular area, it's not just what happens in that area. Remember, the wife beating and chastisement was a thing in different communities. We had dehumanizing of widows in this same country, where widows, the water of the corpse of their loved ones was washed and given to them to drink in this country. So if we now claim that this is a matter of culture that needs to be adhered to, then traditional leaders need to be brought to the conversation table to talk about reviewing some of the barbaric laws, the cultures and the festivals that exist within that community.
Of course.
The videos that came from Ozoro is dehumanizing, and we cannot turn a blind eye to it. It is time that Nigeria infuses a strict punishment to sexual offenders. When we say right against persons, violence against persons, abused persons, we know the vulnerable in the society. We know the most vulnerable numbers in society. Are we denying the fact that men are not also abused? Absolutely not. But the government needs strict adherence to rapists. Also, people who falsely accuse rapists. So if you falsely accuse a person of rape, you should be given punishment. The Constitution should have a provision for that, as much as enforcing punishment for rapists. We made mention of the fact that countries like Germany and other countries, I don't know why the name of the other country is skipping right now, but 2 countries in this week, in this month alone, have enforced the death penalty for rapists. Why can't we? Why can't we?
That's the question that begs for answer. Just like you stated, of course, the Constitution does not explicitly, the Nigerian Constitution does not explicitly state that this is a punishment for rapists. But of course, under the Penal Act or the Penal Code, basically, it then goes that each state will now have to be able to decide what that punishment is or will be.
How many have enforced? Well, how many rape stories have you heard in this month alone?
Recent times, right?
We've heard children being sexually assaulted. Yeah. How many of these people are made to face the full wrath of the law? The last time we had a conversation with one of these bodies, I think it was NAPTIP or one of those bodies, and we asked, do you have a sexual offenders register? Do the public have access to that register? When people go to organizations to work, do they have a register to check whether this person is a sex offender? Because that offender that you have left to roam the street will come and work in an organization, and it will be that same person who will sexually assault people who work within their organization.
That's right.
This conversation is as serious as breath, as life and death. Because too often we let women, we let them live in fear. I understand that not all men are rapists. Not all men are sexual offenders. Not all men abuse women or are engaged in domestic violence, but it is mostly them. And we cannot shy away from the conversation that women has over time been the most vulnerable population when we talk about rape and domestic violence. The government needs to look into it. The community of Ozoro needs to scrap out that festival. If they cannot control whatever exists within their town, it needs to be scrapped. Okay. Who compensates the women who are raped within the Ozoro community in those videos? Who compensates them?
Well, again, we hope that, of course, the law takes its full course in this particular matter. Just like, the federal government has made that order. We do hope that they follow through, ensuring that those that are being found guilty will have to face the full wrath of the law. But that being said, this is all we're going to be taking on today's edition of the program this morning. Do remember that you can be part of the conversation every day by following us on our social media platforms, social media pages across our platforms at Rapid TV. And of course, you can get to watch all our episodes at official Rapid TV. And wherever you are in the world, you can watch us live using our website at www.arabianradiotv.com. My name is Victor. Okay.
And my name is Martha Alo. And to close out for today, sexual offenders must be brought to book. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.